Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. We're taking EZA LR Super Saiyan God Goku into Red Zone once again, this time against one of the newer stages in Red Zone Cell Max. Do let me know down in the comments how you're finding his EZA along with Kid Goku, and don't forget as well, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, all the support is very much appreciated. But I have to say, I'm enjoying using him. I also have to be honest and admit, this isn't my first run bringing him against Cell Max. It's like my third or fourth. I've done like 2 attempts against Broly. I've done like 3 attempts against Cooler Core. That's going to be one of his weaker points just because of the type disadvantage and Cooler Core doing so much damage. But Cell Max, while he's not the most difficult, him being able to super attack multiple times in one turn can catch, I think, any, well, not any, because not the top 1%, but quite a few units off guard if you're not careful. And one of the things I noticed, and you're going to see at the end of the turn because Goku's in slot 3 here, is because we've just started and there's no build up in Cell Max's event, like it's just straight away he does 300k on basics, 600k on supers. Yeah, the supers are not a lot, but again, he can do it multiple times, so it adds up depending on what unit is being super attacked during the rotation and where they're coming from. Because we've just started, Goku hasn't begun to kind of mini stack his attack and defense, where he gets that 50% attack and defense raise on his 18 key for 5 turns. He hasn't started yet. This is turn 1 and he doesn't get an additional, unfortunately. He super attacks once. He does have just over 200k at the start of turn, which is not bad, but it's turn 1 and Cell Max is doing 300k on basics, so he ends up taking 100k from Cell Max on his basic in total, which I'm not gonna lie, as I said, Cell Max can catch you, but that was not in the way I meant. So again, because there's no build up, because there's not like loads and loads of phases, or a decent amount of phases that Broly has and like slow build up, because you know you don't have like kind of a waiting period like Cooler Core before the difficulty really ramps up, you're kind of just in the most difficult part straight away from the get-go. I can kind of excuse that a little bit. It can catch you and it can kind of ruin your run. Maybe you need to use an item early. As you can see here, we have barely any HP. Like, we're literally almost dead and we're literally getting super attack right now. If that wasn't Bird Coup, or I didn't have God Coup on that same rotation as a potential option, we probably would have been dead and the run was done. So, you know, while we know in God Goku's kit, he kind of needs like 2-3 turns to super before his defense is in a solid enough spot for him to tank basics on, fair enough, the majority of Red Zone bosses. Unfortunately, when it comes to Cell Max specifically, if Goku is about on turn 1 or turn 3, which will potentially be his like second appearance, his defense to tank Cell Max's basics just aren't enough. And while he does have that 50% chance to dodge, which, because it is a 50% chance to dodge, those are coin flip odds, like it's a literal 50-50. If it doesn't pop for you like it didn't for me, and lucky enough that was only one attack we had to deal with, and lucky enough it was only a basic and not a super, because if it was a super, we're dead. Like literally the run would have been done turn 1. But because it is a 50% chance and it's a coin flip odds, unfortunately, you know, at some points it's going to seem like you have more than a 50% chance to dodge because you're dodging all the time. And other times, like what happened there, and I've experienced in a few runs myself that have gone wrong, Goku just doesn't decide to dodge. Now, I know that's kind of how dodge works anyway, but this is where I really wish the net EZA, they would have bumped his 50% chance to dodge for 10 turns up to 70, and then after turn 11 where it drops, it would have dropped down to a 50% chance to dodge. At this point, I would have happily have taken on turn 11 and after, it going from, if they bumped the turn, like the 10 turns up to a 70, they dropped turn 11 and after down to 30. I know they don't really make drop-offs like that, you know, they usually do it, you know, the one that typically comes after, you know, 70, 50, 30. I still would have taken that. That would have helped Goku out a lot more, because while you're 4 or 5 turns deep of raising his attack and defense by 50% every turn, which is still very good, by the way, you know, even EZA transforming Gogeta Blue has it, and he has like in the realms of 500-600k defense, you know, once he's, you know, building up. But while 500-600k defense is solid, Gogeta Blue has a 70% chance to dodge, which means more often than not, his dodge should be popping. Whether he dodges all of the attacks is a different story, but at least he has more of a chance to dodge the majority, whereas Goku doesn't. Goku has a 50% chance to dodge. So while 500-600k defense is still solid, and once you're, you know, 3/4 and even the full 5 turns deep of building up Goku's attack and defense, he'll be able to tank Cell Max's basics for double digits with no item active, which is fantastic. As you can see there, 300, just over 300k defense at the start of turn. He's going to super attack, he goes up to 400k defense. Cell Max's basics do 300k. He's tanking double digits, it's fantastic. But 600k defense alone is not enough to compete in red zone, unfortunately, which sounds mad because that's a lot of defense. It's enough to handle the majority of super attacks. Obviously basic attacks. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be enough to handle Cell Max's super attacks and any red zone boss's super attacks, especially because Cell Max being one of the weaker ones when it comes to super attacks. Like, he did tank that with a Whis active, so he actually tanked that fairly well. But if there was no Whis active, again, we probably would have been dead. Bear in mind, he's not fully built up for the 5 turns at this point. But as I was saying, Cell Max having one of the lowest super attack damage outputs at 600k, even then, 600k defense on God Goku just isn't enough to contend with that. With a Whis active, of course, 100%. However, Cell Max super attacks multiple times. So, of course, that's the trade-off for him having such low super attack output in terms of damage compared to other red zone bosses, because he can super attack 3 times in one turn, which I've found more often than not. In fact, I don't think I've seen a time where he hasn't super attacked 3 times in one turn. There might have been a time where he super attacked twice, but more often than not, he's going to be super attacking multiple times. I don't think I've done a single run where Cell Max will only super attack once. And that can catch Goku out, especially because if you don't get lucky enough for him to dodge, then you're looking at 600k defense, and that's all you have to rely on, which, as I said, in red zone nowadays, which is kind of mad saying this, just isn't quite enough. But then, of course, if the coin flip does go your way, if RNG is in your favor, that's 600k defense with a 50% chance to dodge, which, of course, can be very good. As I've said recently, I do think dodge is one of the stronger mechanics in the game, just because more red zone events and stages, you are able to dodge. And of course, it just works so well. You know, you dodge a super attack, especially against a red zone boss that may super attack once. You super attack, or they super attack, you dodge it, you take no damage, that's it. You're kind of good for the remainder of the turn. But again, because it's a 50% chance to dodge, which is still pretty good, but because it's a coin flip chance, if it doesn't decide to pop, relying on 500k defense with God Goku just unfortunately isn't enough nowadays, which is, again, just still kind of mad saying. But again, specifically against Cell Max, you know, you can tank his basics without an item active with 500k defense, but that is when you're like 2-3 turns deep of super attacking with God Goku. So he does kind of need protecting in like the first 2 turns, but you're not going to really want to pop that item early against Cell Max, just because, you know, in our case, we kind of want Birdku to get the revive. You know, we kind of want to save it for later on. Or you could go for the early Whis pop and then wait for the build up, and then you're kind of fine. But once the 5 turns are up, you're kind of back to square one if you don't have dupes on him, and if you don't pick up an additional along the way to give his defense a bit of extra padding to get that second 50% attack and defense raise, which unfortunately for me, I didn't really get any additionals with God Goku in this run. That's kind of just typically what happens with me with units who have dupes. They just don't seem to pop in videos where I need them to pop. But other than that, the dodge chance and the defense once he's like 4 or 5 turns deep with a super attack are good. If the dodge doesn't come, if it doesn't pop, which is why I wish they bumped it to a 70% chance so it's a bit more consistent, because again, 500k defense by itself just isn't enough. As I said, it can work really well, but on the other hand, if it doesn't pop, Goku's getting caught. That's just the simplicity of it. In terms of the damage output, Cell Max has a hench health bar, the biggest red zone health bar in the game at 80 mil. Goku's doing damage, especially if, again, you're a few turns deep. And again, this was about two pure or hybrid Saiyan categorized on the team, which, as I said, having 1 or 2 units, like for example with us using both gammas, it doesn't really detriment him that much. You're not missing out on a lot of ki, you're not missing out on a lot of attack and defense. It's 22% in 2 ki. It doesn't make a detriment to God Goku. But as I said, Cell Max has a hench health bar. Goku's doing good damage. Because of the fact he has a built-in crit in his passive, Goku's actually doing some pretty decent raw damage to his health bar, and that's saying something because of how hench his health bar actually is. 4.2 mil crit there. The dodge actually popped, so we dodged the super attack, which is fantastic. That's one of the better times. You know, that's one of the, you know, the good things about Goku. But also the double-edged sword, if it didn't pop, he's taking damage from a super. Any other red zone boss, you know, we're kind of worried because that would have done a lot of damage. Cell Max, not so much because it's only 600k. But he does a lot of very good damage because of that built-in crit. And if we hit an additional because we have dupes, we also could hit another crit, which means, again, he's doing a lot of good raw damage. And as I said, that's saying something because of how much health Cell Max really has. So great damage output. If the dodge pops, great. He tanks double digits on basic against Cell Max, but Cell Max's basics compared to others aren't on the same level. So far so good, but I'm starting to see a few cracks. But I'll see you in the next video, guys, and peace.